Hello, my friends. Welcome to your Tuesday here in America and Canada and wherever you're listening. Very happy to have you here. Joining me today, I've got Brian Shapiro, who is a big YouTube radio star, and I was very excited to have a conversation with him for the first time. I was on his show a few weeks back, and I think you're going to like it. If you want to jump to the interview, it begins at about 33 minutes in today. But before that, I've got your headlines and clips, as well as your good stuff, so I want to get right into it, but do just quickly want to say I had a great time last night's hangout. The Monday night hangout was a lot of fun. If you're a subscriber and you want to relive it, you can watch it by clicking on the link in the subscriber email. I will not be hosting a hangout on Thursday because I am taking the girls skiing thanks to you for your support. I couldn't do this without you, but I'm going to take a couple of days off, but I will be posting interviews. I've got great conversations coming the rest of the week with Dr. Aaron Carroll, Celeste Headley, and more. Oh, very excited about those conversations. You're going to love them, I'm sure. Also, speaking of Aaron, he looks like he's definitely going to be at PODJAM. It was tenuous there for a second because he had another speaking gig. Dr. Aaron Carroll told me yesterday he's planning on coming, so should you. Get tickets now to Las Vegas for PODJAM, March 28th to 30th. It's going to be awesome. We had a great time last night at the Hangout. A lot of those folks who joined us at the Hangout will be joining us for everything happening in Las Vegas. So I really hope that you will consider coming. Okay, there you go. I have prepared a show for you. So let's get to it. If you want to jump to headlines and clips, it starts at 8 minutes, 45 seconds or so. But first, it's time for the good stuff. Your good stuff. Mine. Let's do it. I'm going to let the legend Toni Morrison start us off. In this clip, the celebrated author and one of the greatest Americans ever answers a question from an audience member about, quote, how to survive a whole world where we are all victims of something. This is part of the Connecticut Forum in conversation with Frank McCourt back in 2001.
How do you survive whole in a world where we're all victims of something? It's to both of you.
How do you survive whole? I can't do this quickly, Juan.
Okay.
How can you survive whole and where we're victims of something? That's a nice, big, fat, Eastern, Western philosophical question about how do you get through. Sometimes you don't survive whole. You just survive in part. But the grandeur of life is that attempt. It's not about that solution. It is about, being as fearless as one can and behaving as beautifully as one can under completely impossible circumstances. It's that makes it elegant. Good is just more interesting, more complex, more demanding. Evil is silly. It may be horrible, but at the same time, it's not a compelling idea. It's predictable. It needs a tuxedo. It needs a headline. It needs blood. It needs fingernails. It needs all that costume in order to get anybody's attention. But the opposite, which is survival, blossoming, endurance, those things are just more compelling intellectually, if not spiritually, and they certainly are spiritually. This is more fascinating job. We are already born. We are going to die. So you have to do something interesting that you respect in between.
That was wild. I like it.
That's right.
Wow. Man, was she brilliant, because that wasn't prepared. That was a question from an audience member, and she was still that wise in her answer. Love that. Is some good stuff and super helpful to hear her perspective on anything. And I like this. I like anything that the actor Sir Michael Caine does or reads. And so here he is over music reading his rendition of his favorite poem, If, by Rudyard Kipling.
The Kipling poem It's one of my favorites since I was a boy at school. My father read it to me once. And I think it to me as a little boy, it summed up what a man should be. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowances for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor look too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can hear the truth you've spoken twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life for broken and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at the beginning, and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are done, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 40 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son.
Ooh, I like it. I like it a lot. You'll be human, I think. Let's make it for everybody, but I do think that's a good poem for men. Rudyard Kipling. Is that how you say his name? I used to say it Rudy Yard, and then I got woke. Okay, I hope that you like that. Today's good stuff. I know a lot of people loved Harrison Ford yesterday, reading E.O. Wilson, so I see a trend forming. All right, that's what I've got for you on today's good stuff. I hope that you liked it. I hope it starts your day off good, because I've got a lot of tough headlines and clips coming up, and a great conversation with Brian Shapiro. But maybe you want to put a pause on today's show at this moment because you're feeling good after hearing Michael Caine read Rudyard Kipling. You didn't think that was going to happen, did you, today? Yeah, the surprises here on Stand Up, they just keep on coming. Now it's time for headlines, everybody. That's right. I've got plenty of news stories for you today. Should mention, as I get started, many of these stories will upset you. They will trigger you. Many of these are the aberrations. They're exceptions. They are the big stories because they are bad in many cases or negative in many cases. That's how it works. I'm not going to list all the good things that happened yesterday, but infinite acts of kindness and love happened. We don't report on those. You're going to be triggered. I certainly was. And by the way, coming up today, the confirmation hearings are going to begin, and they are also going to be, I'm sure, very upsetting. Remember, separate yourself from the news. Don't let it own you, and don't let it be taken out on the people that you love, that work with, or anyone else. Certainly, most importantly, yourself. Have self-compassion. Okay, that is the PSA. Before I get into these horrible headlines, forgive me for reading them. Top story continues to be the LA fires and the strong winds that kicked back up, threatening to intensify them. Forecasters expecting winds in Los Angeles to pick up. Then we know they did because we were on with many of you last night. Remain heavy over today and tomorrow. Development could reverse some of the hard-fought gains that firefighters made over the weekend. In anticipation, fire crews were deployed to at-risk areas. The National Weather Service said that winds could lead to explosive fire growth, put in place a rare fire danger alert. The same warning was issued last week when intense winds stoked two of the deadliest fires in California history. The flames decimated entire neighborhoods and left evacuees with no communities to return to. Not out of these fires yet, or any fires. We're going to see more of this in the future, of course. The largest of the several fires, the Palisades Fire, is now 14% contained, or at least it was last night. That's the most destructive. The most destructive is the Eaton Fire. It's 33% contained. At least 24 people have been killed, and 23 others are considered missing. Investigators have zeroed in on a ridge above Los Angeles where the Palisades Fire is believed to have been ignited in their effort to figure out what caused the blaze. As far as I can tell from the experts I've been reading, it could have been anything, and if it wasn't that, it's going to be something else. The conditions for these fires were so rife, and it happened, and we are dealing with it all right now. So they will find the cause, I'm sure. I don't know how they do that, but we'll soon learn, and hopefully it won't be arson, although I've heard that at least one fire was. Hard to follow. Anyway, the other big story coming today is that Trump supporters are going all in to support Pete Hegseth. More than a dozen of Donald Trump's cabinet nominees will sit for Senate confirmation hearings this week. New York Times says the questioning the nominees face, especially from Republicans, will provide an early indication of Trump's relationship with the Senate less than a week before he begins his second term. The most high-profile of the hearings, they say, starts today. That's Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense. He's been grappling with a variety of damaging accusations, including his fucking tattoos. This guy is such bad news, such a douchebag, such a horrible person. I don't know how he's going to be able to lead the Pentagon. There's no possible way that anyone is going to respect him over there because he's an idiot, he's a drunk, he's not apologetic for it. But he's being backed by a coalition of outside groups who pressured Republican senators to confirm him or face a daunting political fallout. Don't confirm Hegseth, our Christian nationalist in charge of nuclear weapons, then we're going to primary you. Don't fall for it. I'm sure they will. In other news regarding the transition, a group of health experts released a letter opposing the confirmation of RFK Jr. The singer Carrie Underwood, who is now apparently a judge on America's Got Talent or The Voice or one of those shows, she's scheduled to perform at Trump's inauguration, so she's getting a lot of righteous grief. Steve Bannon's going after Elon Musk and now Mark Zuckerberg as well. And that's all I've got for you on the transition at the moment. I thought this was interesting. I wanted to include it. It's not a New York story, this congestion pricing. It's a urban story. It's a city story. It's a cities around the world that have terrible traffic and congestion problems. Here might be a huge part of the solution. It's been over just a week since New York City began charging drivers $9 to enter Manhattan's busiest streets. An early look at the data suggests that the program, which aims to ease gridlock and encourage mass transit, is beginning to accomplish its goals. Last week, hundreds of thousands fewer vehicles entered Manhattan's core than in a typical week, and that shortened some commutes. Buses ran faster, and traffic improved in most bridges and tunnels and some streets in the congestion zone. What do you make of that? We got a lot to learn. I think that's a very interesting story. Also yesterday, President Biden, in his last full week as president, made a big foreign policy accomplishments speech. He also learned that the U.S. secretly obtained intelligence last summer suggesting that Russia was preparing to send explosive packages on planes bound for America, cargo planes, I believe. U.S. officials believe that the Russians were also behind fires at European airports around the same time. So in response, the president at the time, President Biden, dispatched his top national security aides to warn Vladimir Putin that the U.S. would hold Russia responsible if sabotage campaign led to mass casualties. Since then, the rash of fires in Europe has ceased, and of course, we didn't have any planes explode, so seems to have worked, and he'll get no credit for it at all because he didn't openly and outwardly threaten him, thus revealing the potential plot, and that we had intelligence knowing about it. All right. The incoming Trump administration apparently is questioning the National Security Council staff about their political affiliations, voting history, and social media activity, raising concerns about loyalty to Trump. Or put it this way, from the Associated Press, incoming senior Trump administration officials have begun questioning career civil servants who work on the White House National Security Council about who they voted for in 2024 election, their political contributions, and whether they have made social media posts that could be considered incriminating by President-elect Donald Trump's team, according to a U.S. official familiar with the matter. So, did you hear that? It's a loyalty test in the National Security Council. That's real bad. And the big news last night, late last night, it came out actually early today at about 12:45 a.m. The Department of Justice released its long-awaited election interference report against President-elect Donald Trump after a protracted legal fight, the Jack Smith case. Prosecutors dropped 2 federal criminal cases against Trump after he won the 2024 election. The final report by Special Counsel Jack Smith is their last chance to explain their decisions. And Smith, in a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland, prefacing the report, defended his work and his team as well as his impartiality in pursuing the federal cases against Trump, whom prosecutors ended up charging with election interference in Washington, D.C., and with hoarding classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago resort and refusing to return them to the FBI. The report says the evidence would have led to Trump's conviction at trial, quote, but for Mr. Trump's election and imminent return to the presidency. So that is a pretty big deal. The 137-page report lays out prosecutors' evidence of Trump's efforts to influence the election, propagate election claims he knew was false. I can't dig into it now. It's just breaking as I put this together, but we'll learn a lot more about it in the coming days for sure. Okay, remember, hopefully this news update didn't make you too upset, trigger you too much. Check in with yourself. Pain is certain, suffering is optional. Who said it? I think it was the Buddha. Okay. Now it's time to get to the clips that I've got for you. Those are also going to be pretty upsetting. I probably should have waited. But here, first of all, is a few Republicans saying the same kind of talking point that Californians don't deserve aid because it's their fault that fire. Yeah. One of the worst of the commenters was a senator from Alabama named Tommy Tuberville, and I think this is one of those right-wing news stations like Newsmax or something. This guy's a real POS.
Why should other states be bailing out California for choosing the wrong people to run their state?
We shouldn't be. They got 40 million people in that state, and they voting these imbeciles in office, and they continue to do it. And it's just a very small part of them in that state that's doing it. If you go to California, you run into a lot of Republicans, a lot of good people, and I hate it for them. But they are just overwhelmed by these inner city woke policies with the people that vote for them. I don't mind sending them some money, but unless they show that they're going to change their ways and get back to building dams and storing water, doing the maintenance with the brush and the trees and everything that everybody else does in the country, and they refuse to do it, they don't deserve anything, to be honest with you, unless they show us they're going to make some changes, Chris.
All right, that guy is terrible, and it's crazy that he's calling anyone else an imbecile. Real dumb guy. I mean, for a lot of reasons. Now, here is a very powerful guy, the leader of the House, basically saying the same thing. This is Mike Johnson being followed by reporters yesterday in the House. I think this is CNN's Manu Raju. Audio's not great, but I think you can hear it if you've got headphones on.
Are you open to providing aid to California without any conditions at all?
I think we've got to have a serious conversation about that. Obviously, there's been water resource mismanagement, forest management mistakes, all sorts of problems. And it does come down to leadership, and it appears to us that state and local leaders were derelict in their duty in many respects. So that's something that has to be factored in. I think there should probably be conditions on that aid. That's my personal view. We'll see what the consensus is. I haven't had a chance to socialize that with any of the members over the weekend because we've all been very busy, but it'll be part of the discussion for sure.
What about the debt limit increase? What about tying the debt limit increase to it?
There's some discussion about that, but we'll see where it goes.
Are you open to providing aid to California without any conditions at all?
I think we've got to have a serious conversation about that. Obviously, there's been water resource mismanagement, forest management mistakes, all sorts of problems. And it does come down to leadership, and it appears to us that state and local leaders were derelict in their duty in many respects. So that's something that has to be factored in. I think there should probably be conditions on that aid. That's my personal view. We'll see what the consensus is. I haven't had a chance to socialize that with any of the members over the weekend because we've all been very busy, but it'll be part of the discussion for sure.
What about the debt limit increase? What about tying the debt limit increase to it?
There's some discussion about that, but we'll see where it goes.
All right, infuriating, but the worst of all must have been this one. I forget this guy's name, and I'm running late. I can't look it up. It's a Republican congressman, again, on one of those, I think, Newsmax, and he refers to the head of FEMA, Dina Criswell, who happens to be a woman, as a DEI hire.
I tell you, what that DEI hire said was just incredibly stupid. You just can't do that. When the federal government offers you resources like that, helicopters and Marines on the ground, then you would take that. That just shows an incredible lack of leadership, the inability, and that comes from DEI hires.
Ooh, tough to hear. Tough to hear indeed. Well, John Avlon handled this situation, this topic, pretty well on CNN. Unfortunately, he was on with some weird right-winger who was arguing talking about, isn't it fascinating how these horrible things or news breaks and immediately the talking points come out, especially on the right. I mean, we don't have at any time in Earth One as progressives or Democrats or whatever to react to the crazy shit they're necessarily going to say. I mean, I suppose you could have predicted that these fires were going to be met with political conspiracies and by Trump and all the rest. But I guess people didn't necessarily – how do you react to a bunch of Republicans saying, you know what, we're going to condition aid to people? I suppose you could have seen this one coming, but it's tough to defend against. Anyway, John Avlon does his best on CNN last night with, as always, a bit of a historical perspective.
Oh, first of all, I mean, Democratic voters in Los Angeles voted 5% more for Donald Trump. So, I mean, you know, and we saw a 2-to-1 margin for the ballot initiative to basically recriminalize low-level crime, which was the right thing to do. I think the mayor being out of the country/continent during the fires, that's never a good look. You work for a mayor. If you're the mayor, you stay in town or you stay close to town. That said, the attempt to make this partisan and get political hay is utter BS. This is a natural disaster. America traditionally has found ways to unite in response to natural disasters. Now we got a wave of disinformation going across social media with a lot of BS facts trying to gin stuff up. So you want to get, we'll see what the rebuilding process is. But we used to be a country that united in times like this. Within a week of Katrina, there was $10 billion passed in aid relief, bipartisan lines. I had a beat because that's who we are. That's who we were. It's who we are at our heart. But we are getting spun around the axle trying to get political points.
John, the difference between Katrina and this
natural disaster.
Yeah, but this is a.
By the way, the mayor of New Orleans ended up not being covering himself with glory either.
Right. Okay. But the Katrina was something that was very difficult to prevent, the surging of the waters. People think about a fire and basic things like having the right people in the right place with the right equipment and the water available to them in the reservoirs and in the pumping stations. That has to do with infrastructure. I don't know if they could have prepared for Katrina the way they should have or foreseen it. This was so foreseeable.
Well, I mean,
that guy is such an unbelievable idiot. An audacious argument, the fire versus water argument. That's what he did. And he said it's foreseeable, and they could have prevented it. Wind. You cannot prevent wind more than anything else. You can't fly planes in it. You can't drop water in it. Ooh, infuriating, that dude yesterday, but taking a breath, calming down, and throwing to our friend Jon Stewart, who makes it just a little bit better with jokes. You got to hear the whole segment, but here's a few minutes of how Jon Stewart handled all of those assholes and the argument last night on The Daily Show.
What the is wrong with you? Really, Senator? From Alabama? The state near the bottom in math, reading, and test scores. Next time you get hit by a hurricane, why don't we have a little parent-teacher conference to see that if you got your scores up, you would get the money. Or actually, let's not do it, because you'll get the money anyway, because we're not psychos. That is psychotic. There's something wrong with you. And you know what? And here's the thing. I can do the Daily Show thing. I can run down all the congresspeople and senators on the right calling for conditions on disaster aid that absolutely had the opposite view when it was their state on the line.
We need to do everything we can. We have citizens that are literally going to get worse by the day.
Shut the up. Because I can do it, but it doesn't even matter. I'm not even going to do it. Because red states are always the tragic victims of circumstance outside of their control. And Democrats always vote for their aid. Whereas blue state disasters are a function of their flawed morality and policy. And if we help blue state survivors, well, what message will that send? What lesson will they learn? But fine. If strings must be attached, what be the strings?
The problem with California is forestry management.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I didn't review it. It's true. The management of the forest. You have to rake the leaves and shut down the illegal elf tree cookie factory. I understand. And what a great, utterly anodyne suggestion. I mean, what forest couldn't be managed better? I mean, if you've been to a forest lately, chaos. It's chaos. It's the dirt and leaves and what is that? Bear shit, I'm sure. I want to see the manager. Okay, so we get the money if we have better forest management. Everybody then gets food and clothes. What else?
They've not done the necessary work to make sure there's fresh water flowing into key areas.
Oh, water. Yeah, no question. No question. Water for the fire. I'm going to get that message to the firefighters. Toot sweet. Water is so...
All right, Jon Stewart, The Daily Show, good stuff, and the rest, everybody was obviously making jokes about it, because what else can you do at this point? But it does, I think the humor does put it in this perspective and help people understand the way that things normally are and used to be, and just how inhumane these responses are, not to mention just when it comes to policy, and most importantly, L.A. County alone pays more taxes than, like, almost every other state but 4, I think I read yesterday in the Washington Post. The point really is you could argue that the money that would be sent back as aid was actually theirs in the first place. They actually sent way more money than all of the rest of the states. So they're owed it. California supports all of these red states in so many ways. How dare they try to withhold money as a result? So I think that's an important way of seeing it. Read Phil Bump in the Washington Post. There's plenty of analysis of it out there. Now, here is, I thought this was interesting. This is Steve Bannon savaging now Mark Zuckerberg as well. I hate to play his voice, but it's important.
The turmoil here is going to be quite extensive. President Trump's just not going to have a clear path, because they're going to try to chop block him. The corporations are all down there right now with their little $1 million checks, and they want to come to the, they want to come to the inauguration, and they want to wear a black tie and pal around and go to all the receptions. That's all fine. That's part of an American tradition. But those corporations, and particularly the tech corporations, there's some comments I have in the New York Post today with the great Miranda Devine talking about Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg can't be trusted at all. He came in the Oval Office. They lined him in the Oval Office when I was there, and I went absolutely bonkers, but he still got to the Oval Office. And later, he put up $450 million of his own money to steal the 2020 election. These guys are supplicants now because President Trump is coming in with the American people have his back. But after 6 months, a year of hard fighting and resistance at the administrative state and deep level and the corporations, is Zuckerberg and these guys can be counted on? Only thing they can be counted on is to look after their own self-interest. That's it.
Huh. Hard to disagree with that, right? That's kind of weird. What the hell is happening? All right, here's President Biden touting his foreign policy accomplishments in his last full week in office yesterday.
My administration is leaving the next administration with a very strong hand to play. And we're leaving them in America with more friends and stronger alliances, whose adversaries are weaker and under pressure. An America that once again is leading, uniting countries, setting the agenda, bringing others together behind our plans and visions. An America which is no longer at war, which has made historic investments in American workers, American energies, American factories, generating the strongest economy in the world, which is now in a much better position to win the future against any competitor. These wins are not partisan. They're American. They benefit all Americans and reflect America's endless capacity for leadership and reinvention.
All right. Unfortunately, Joe Biden's foreign policy legacy will be almost overwhelmingly probably attributed to the horror and genocide in Gaza. So I can't imagine that history will look far past that. Obviously, the war in Ukraine and the intervention, the conclusion there yet remains, and so many other issues that will get over all the good things that they have done, including, I believe, ending the war in Afghanistan, will be overlooked because of the horror and the support, overwhelming support and inability to keep Israel in check. And I think that's going to be his foreign policy legacy. Not a good one, in my opinion. History not going to look well on the Biden administration, I think. That's my opinion. Maybe you have a different one. Happy to hear it. All right, let's get to one more set of laughs. This from Stephen Colbert in the Late Show at CBS last night.
And to Canada, the fires, the people who've been affected by this tragedy. And it's not just Americans who are pitching in, because Canada and Mexico are sending teams to help California fight the fires. Gracias, Mexico. Gracias. You know? Yeah. And to Canada, gracias, eh? I don't speak Canadian, but I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful. Hey, you know who's not helping? Congressional Republicans, because they want strings attached to California's fire aid. That is an awful, awful way to respond to any emergency. 911, what's in it for me? Regardless of the fact that the most recent annual report shows that California put in $83 billion more into the federal treasury than it got back, you're hearing stuff like this from Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming, a state whose entire population is smaller than the morning rush crowd at the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf on La Cienega. Jim?
There can't be a blank check on this, however, because people want to make sure that as rebuilding occurs, as things go on in California, they have to be resilient so that these sorts of things can't happen again. And the policies of the liberal administration out there, I believe, have made these fires worse.
Yes, we must demand changes to clearly liberal policies like wind. First, it's blowing one way, then it's blowing the other. It's time to end the bisexual breeze. That's what's starting the fires.
All right, Colbert last night. Very good, very good. Now it's time to get to my guest, everybody. I'm very happy to have Brian Shapiro joining me here. You may have heard my conversation with him when I was his guest on his show, which you can find everywhere at PTL Radio Show. It's Pushing the Limits. Search it on YouTube. He's a 20-year radio talk veteran who covers news, politics, sports, and entertainment live from Vegas. And he's really gotten popular because he takes on so many Trump-supporting MAGA phone calls. Just go look it up on YouTube and watch him handle these folks. It's very entertaining and interesting, I think, important. Brian does great work. I was really happy to have him on. You should subscribe to his podcast. Go over to his YouTube page and subscribe to it as well. You won't be sorry. YouTube Pushing the Limits. For the first time on the show as my guest, it's Brian Shapiro. Yeah, there he is, Brian Shapiro. He's huge now on YouTube. I love watching your videos on YouTube. I've become a fan. Obviously, I did your show. I shared our interview right here. People might have been familiar with you from that, but maybe they've been watching your YouTube videos. But thank you so much for joining me. I'm very excited to have you. I'm a big fan of what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I've been watching you on TV for years. You're an extremely talented guy. I've always loved your political commentary. And now that we've become friends, it's awesome. I'm honored to be on your show, and I appreciate you having me.
But you're slumming it with me. I mean, give me the list of big name interviews. You've made a lot of splashes because you've hustled and you gained credibility really quickly. Tell me, just list off, like you're just drop names right now. Everybody you've talked to.
Just in the last year. Oh my God. Dr. Jill Biden, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. That interview was played on The View the next day. Vivek Ramaswamy, Caroline Levitt. I mean, the list goes on and on. The only person maybe I haven't interviewed is Donald Trump. I mean, I've pretty much had everybody else on.
How did you convince, you didn't hide anything. How did you convince those kind of right-wing MAGA or MAGA adjacent people to talk to you?
So I have a friend of mine who's a billionaire who donated a lot of money to the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. campaign. So that helped get me an in to get RFK Jr. on. As far as Vivek Ramaswamy is concerned, the person that was working for him had no idea what my content was. And I think if they did, Vivek may or may not have still done the show. Caroline Leavitt did my show. And then after she did my show, I was banned from getting any more Trump surrogates to come on because I challenged her. She's an election-denying moron. So some people do their research and pass because they don't want to be challenged. And then some people are willing to get into it with me and are willing to have a good debate. It's a case-by-case basis, I guess.
Who says I have a billionaire friend? Who just dropped that? I said drop some names, not that you had that was like, how do you have a billion? Why and how? And can I eat this person?
I will actually say who it is. No, you can't eat him. Do you remember that submarine story where I think it was like 5 or 6 people died on that submerged submarine?
Yeah.
Well, one of the guys, right. So one of the guys that was supposed to be on that submarine, his name is Jay Bloom. He and his son were supposed to be there. The reason why they didn't is because his son had safety concerns, and last second they didn't go on. They did an interview on CNN, and then I learned that they live in Las Vegas, and I actually became friends with him. Jay's a really nice guy. I don't always agree with him politically, but we hang out. He's a really nice guy, and I've met some very prominent people because of him, and that's how I actually met Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I spoke with him in person several times.
Jay Bloom, American investor, real estate developer, and entrepreneur.
That's
based in. And now you won't allow me to eat him. I would like to meet him, and then I would like to eat him from a meal.
You have a strange appetite, but do what you need to do, my friend.
I just want to eat the billionaires. I want to eat the rich.
I just want their money. That's all.
Well, I want to talk to you about your theories on, any economic systems and philosophy and everything else, because you're a really smart guy and you have. You can talk about a wide range of issues, obviously, but how did you get into this game? I don't know. I can't figure you out. I'm usually really good at judging people and accurate, but your history is a little sketchy. There's not enough out there about you. I feel like you just came out of nowhere and started being this very effective and influential commentator, which usually, there's a build and there's the minor leagues and stuff, but you're really good at this and talking about a wide range of issues. Tell me about your rise to fame and power on YouTube.
Well, I'll give you the 2-minute version or the Stormy Daniels Donald Trump 15-second version. No, it'll take a little longer than that. And you won't be paying me $130,000, sadly. But so I grew up with Howard Stern growing up. I loved Howard. My family wanted me to be an attorney because they say you're really good at debating people and arguing. I worked at my college radio station, and I was the only person that didn't play music. I just talked and complained, right? I talked about my teachers and how I hated the school I went to. And I don't even remember, but I remember one day there was the glass window at the radio station in the student center. And I had 100 people outside that stopped that were just watching me and staring at me. And I said, wow. The program director comes in, he goes, wow, we've never had this happen before, Brian. You should do this for a living. I said, okay. I decided to change my major to communications, got my first job in radio when I was 21. I was a news reporter for radio. I did that in Connecticut, got my first job in Las Vegas at 22. I came out here. I was a weekly sports talk show host, and I was a news anchor. Had to work for conservative radio stations, but I wasn't very political in my 20s. I would say in my 30s, I started to get more political. I had an opportunity to do my first sports show in my early 30s, but I didn't like the fact that I couldn't talk about news and politics. Then I got a job doing a morning show at a very conservative station. My co-host was a Republican. I'm an independent, lean to the left on social issues. And that's how I started kind of my political commentary. And once Donald Trump took the stage as far as getting into the political spectrum, I became extremely opinionated. And I think COVID changed me a lot. I became, I guess you could use the term combative at times with people that are MAGA supporters. And I'm very open. I'm very honest on the air and off the air. I'm the same person. And, I just call things like it is. And I think the last year or so was probably the last year and a half was the changing point for me, where I got very active on social media. I started a YouTube page, got a website going, and my show became from a local show to a national show. I mean, just today, I just got off the air Pete, and I took about an hour and a half from calls from people all over the country. I take calls from Australia, from Canada. I think there are, so I mean, that's,
love it. I want to sit in for you. I have no idea how to take calls on the internet, but it was my favorite thing about live radio. And
I want you to fill in for me next time. I can't.
I miss it so much, and I'm so much different than you too. So it'd be, but I love talking to anybody and everybody about anything. But I didn't mean to interrupt you there. But kind of brought us up to date, and I'll just add that the thing that really seemed to have made you bust out was that you would take calls from people who were combative, and you are very combative with them, and then you let them talk and make their points, and then you do your thing. And I don't know. I really enjoy it. I don't think I can sell it. I've done that for sure. And I think I could do it, but it just wears me out. And like, I think I want to do more of a Socratic thing. I'm like, really, why do you think that? Because you're so good at fact checking in the moment and calling out their bullshit. You have I think probably a really good memory as well. But so isn't that really what really put you on the spot on YouTube? I mean, you've done all this broadcasting, all these things that you just mentioned, including sports and so on, but you really found your niche, it seems, in arguing with these people, just people calling in, complete strangers usually, but you're also inviting on, as you did today, Trump supporters and Republicans and people that you disagree with a lot. You invite them on as guests as well.
Sure, all the time. I think it's bad radio to do what so much conservative talk radio does, like a Sean Hannity or a Mark Levin, who I think are just terrible people. But they don't have liberals or people that disagree with them hardly ever on their show. Mark Levin, I can't remember him ever doing that. And Mark's done my show. I think it's bad radio to and it makes me uncomfortable to have people on that I always agree with on everything. I think it's boring radio. I'd rather have somebody on that I disagree with, and I'm going to treat you with respect. If you disagree with me, but you treat me with respect, then I'll treat you with respect. But sometimes the interviews don't go very well, and they go south really quickly, and I defend myself. If people are going to attack me, I'm going to attack them. I've had some of those interviews. Larry Elder, what came on my show, it was a very combative interview. Jerome Davis. I mean, I've had so many Republicans that I had, who's the woman who's in jail from Arizona? Tina Peters. She did my show, a complete buffoon. But I think it's better to have conflict. Listen, I used to watch Hannity and Combs. Alan Combs was a good man. I thought it was a good show. But it was a good show because you got to hear both sides. Back when Tucker Carlson was somewhat normal, when he did Crossfire, I was able to watch that show. It was a good show. But now it's so one-sided, and I can't bear my head around that. I can't listen to it.
So I want to get into some of the issues now. We've got the background more on who you are and what you're doing, and everybody can find more about Brian in the show notes and just go subscribe. I guess is the best thing to Pushing the Limits on YouTube, right?
Yep, it's at PTL Radio Show, and the website's pushingthelimits.live. But certainly my YouTube page is the best way to watch the show live, to call in, and to be interactive.
Every day you do it, right? Every day?
Monday through Friday. If I did it every day, I'd be in a mental asylum. I need the weekends.
Monday through Friday. I hear
you. Monday through Friday, 12 to 2. I was in a space yesterday, a MAGA space. I cannot wait to play the audio tomorrow because I triggered them and I questioned them, and they blocked me, and they were up in arms because I questioned them when they were blaming Joe Biden for what took place in New Orleans last week.
I'm sorry. Where were you? What space? A virtual or?
It was a virtual space on X. And I go into these MAGA spaces, and I actually am giddy, and I enjoy it because I just destroy these MAGA people.
Take me. I want to watch. I want to know when you're going. I want to engage.
I will.
So
on X, you have like 1,000 people that are listening, and you have these MAGA speakers. There's 15 or 20. So it's speaker after speaker attacking Gavin Newsom, blaming Joe Biden for the fires. And I just went down a laundry list of all the ridiculous conspiracy theory. I mean, these are people that are crazy. They say Bill Gates is behind COVID. So I just destroy them, right? And they just lose it. They lose their shit. And they block me, and we don't want that guy back in here. But I play it because it's so hilarious, right? Because it triggers them.
Oh, you play? Oh, that's. I gotta hear that. I want to hear it. By the way, did you hear today? I just saw this. Elon Musk deletes tweet agreeing with Alex Jones that the LA fires are part of a quote globalist plot to trigger U.S. collapse.
Why am I not surprised? Listen, Elon Musk was tweeting about DEI yesterday when it came to the fires in California. Yeah. This is a despicable human being. I don't care how much money he has. Ask his own trans daughter what she thinks about him, calling him a rapist, not a rapist, I'm sorry, but just a racist and a horrible father. Elon Musk is a bad guy. He's a tool. I don't care how much money he has. He and Donald Trump have a lot in common.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens when both of their egos want to stay in the room. That's already fascinating. But let me just ask you about, like, since you're always talking to these people and you actually like it, most people would, avoid them, even if they're in their family. Right. So some might describe you as mentally ill. I love it. I think it's great. I think it's healthy, and I think we need it. But my question is more of your psychological analysis of them. Like, how do you see? What are the words you would use to describe the kind of thinking and the ideology of the average MAGA supporter? See, I want there to be nuance. I know they're not as easy as it might be to say they're monolithic. They're not. They're all different kinds of MAGA folks. And so, I mean, what are I really want your thoughts on their ideology, their psychology, what brings them there, and how do you find, if you do, compassion for them as humans?
So I would characterize Trump supporters in a couple different characterizations. Let's start with the people where Trump said I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and they'll still support me. We're talking about his base. Most of these people are cultists. They're extremely ill-informed, usually, not all the time, but usually middle-aged white people that are very uneducated, and let's just call it for what it is, just very stupid people. Okay, now that's his base. They're cultists. They buy his Trump Bibles. They're brainwashed. They're incapable of spelling the word fact. These are the people that think Donald Trump won the 2020 election. These are the people that think, he's never committed a crime in his life, that he's a great man who actually cares about the country. These are the people that brag about the fact that Donald Trump didn't accept a salary when he was president, even though we know he's tripled his net worth and will probably quadruple it within the next few months. So those are very ill-informed, ignorant, stupid people, and those are most of Donald Trump's voters and his supporters. Then you have the wealthy people that only care about their own bottom line. They know that he's a scumbag and a liable sexual abuser and a felon, but they just want to vote for him so they can align their pockets, and they don't care about America. Those are the other people. And then you have the people that are most dangerous, and those are usually politicians, people that only care about remaining in power, the Marco Rubios of the world, the Ted Cruzes of the world, even the J.D. Vances of the world, who once compared Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler. They know exactly who Donald Trump is, but they keep it inside and they keep it behind closed doors because they only care about enriching themselves and remaining in power. Those are the three people. I don't really I feel bad for the first group of people. I don't feel bad for group 2 and group 3 because I think the first group of people are just not very bright. They were born not very intelligent. They're easily brainwashed and manipulated, and I feel bad for them, quite frankly.
Do you think I wonder if that's I think that I sometimes think what you're saying, it makes me laugh, and I get it, and I think there's certain truth to it, but I also think it's not so accurate in that they're not stupid about everything. They might not know. A lot of them are disinformed, as I think you're saying. They're misinformed and disinformed about everything from history, who won the Civil War, to science on climate and vaccines, to economics, right? Which is the history of right-wing talk radio, focusing on trickle down and tax cuts and obviously race. They're racist, maybe. They're ignorant, as you're saying. You said that. But they might know how to run a business. They might know how to fix a tractor or run a farm. And so they're highly intelligent, and they can do a lot of things that maybe you or I can't. But I think that a lot of the stupidity that you're saying really has to do with our education system not teaching people civics. So, I mean, it's easy to say someone's stupid if they don't understand how a bill, or what government does or what democracy is. But in fact, there is, a deeper root, which is our education system, and not understanding that, as well as the media being able to manipulate people for generations now on the right, from Rush to Fox and so on. So what do you think about the nuance I'm trying to inject and what you're saying stupid?
Yeah, so I think some of these people are very bigoted in nature. I think some of these people have hatred in their heart. And you're right. Some of these people know how to run a business. Some of these people have skills. Not every single one of them is stupid, but a lot of these people, it's also the way they were raised, right?
My long soliloquy barely walked you back from stupid.
Well, let me ask you this. If you think this is 70% of the Republican Party in most polls that believe Donald Trump won the 2020 election. Yeah. If you believe Donald Trump won the 2020 election, you're probably stupid. If you believe Donald Trump cares about you and cares about America and doesn't put himself first, you're probably stupid. If you guys believe that January 6th was a tourist visit and that Donald Trump didn't play a role in what took place on January 6th, you're probably stupid.
When you add up someone who believes all those things, yes, I'm going to say you're probably, but I still have a certain, and I think this matters because to fix it is to give them a better, the more accurate story of what their grievances are about. I think it's important for you and I to do. You actually end up, that's why I respect what you do, because you end up doing that in your arguments with them. You end up telling them the real reason why bad things are happening or aren't happening. And I think that's important because they're being so, it's all a psychological thing. I'm very familiar with Mark Levin as well. I'm glad to hear that you are, because to know what he is doing, to know what Russia's doing, like they're feeding people what they want to hear already, their bias and so on. And then they're giving them someone to blame for their lot in life and so on. And that doesn't make those people stupid. That makes them brainwashed. I mean, the same could be said for a highly intelligent person who ends up in some religious cult because that's all they knew growing up in their family. I mean, you could say that about Scientology or Mormonism or
what you're saying, Pete, I completely agree with. And we can talk about racism. There's a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people that are racist were born with families and maybe parents or maybe one parent that happens to be bigoted in nature. So it's all people that were born, maybe some people that are Palestinians. Not all of them, I think, are bigoted in nature, but a lot of people that are born Palestinian people are trained and born to hate people who are Israeli or Jewish people. So I agree with you. I agree. That doesn't mean that you're stupid. It means that you're brainwashed into believing something. Listen, it's possible to be a great businessman and to have some really good skills and be intelligent, but also be a bigot, right?
Oh, so man. Sometimes you'll meet someone who's so good at something like that, running a business, really successful, say like a restaurant owner or something, been in town for like 20 years, and then you start talking to him about not even politics, but like just like economics or something. And it's really not smart. But the thing that I find that's more of a common thread that I'll generalize more about, I'm sure you'll sadly agree with, is there's less about intelligence and more about morality. Like there's this lack of decency. You did a really interesting thing on your show today, and I had done something I think similar on my show last night, in that you talked about James Woods losing his home and crying on TV. And you said something like, listen, this guy's an asshole and I don't like him, but I don't want him to lose his home. The difference is many people who support Trump and Trump himself, they want you to suffer. Cruelty is the point. They want to pull ahead of you in traffic and hit you with their black smoke exhaust. They want to punch you. They want to fight you. They want your family to suffer. That is where I struggle with and many of them are also religious. So there's less of an excuse. So that lack of morality and decency, that I don't think it's a bastion of the left or progressivism. I just think it's like character. There's a lot of never Trumpers that totally get that. And so on, Republicans and conservatives that are decent and moral people that don't wish pain on other people. So articulate what I'm saying there, kind of how you did today, and what you think the thinking is on the lack of decency or morality, or maybe you disagree.
No, I agree. So, Pete, I've been talking about this all week and last week. Look at what happened after New Orleans. The first reaction from Donald Trump and many MAGA supporters weren't, oh, my God. A normal thought, like what we would say, is we feel for the families that have been affected by this, the loss of life. Oh, my God, this is so horrible. No, it was blaming it on a migrant, blaming it on Joe Biden's open border policies, trying to score political points. Now, the way, and I said this in the space last night, the way a normal person has reacted to these fires in California is the first reaction a normal reaction would be, oh, my God, this is horrible. I hope people got out of there. I feel so sorry for them. They've lost their livelihood. That's a normal reaction. Not Donald Trump and his gang of cultists, clowns. That their reaction is, let's blame Gavin Newsom. Let's blame Democrats. Let's blame it on Democratic policies. I mean, there was a moron in a space yesterday that said that they believe that these fires were committed on purpose, arson, because Donald Trump is going to be back in office. I mean, you can't. That's stupid. You just can't make up this kind of stupidity. What happened to decency? I think it's very fair to criticize Gavin Newsom. It's very fair to criticize the mayor in L.A. Let's try to figure out what went wrong. Let's try to prevent this from happening again. Totally fair game. But they're blaming Scott Jennings yesterday, your pal on CNN. Yeah, your good friend Scott Jennings talked to DEI yesterday. He blamed DEI. What type of imbecile would say black firefighters are part of the reason why this has happened? What imbecile?
I actually think it was a black person who threw a cigarette out their window into a dry field.
That must be what it is. Or 2%.
You wouldn't be surprised if he said, if he's like, black folks with their menthol cigarettes, throw them out the window. But that was outrageous when he did that. And that to me was, it's so heartbreaking. It's so sad and upsetting to see all of this. But what's enraging is when people blame the wrong people and reasons for it. And frankly, anybody who thinks they know what happened with the water right now, including the firefighters and including the head of water in LA or whoever, anybody who thinks they know, I'm not trusting. Let's wait. There's going to be there's fires all over that city. Everybody is trying to act like they're an expert and they know who to blame. And it's just really gross to see the type of blame that we're seeing and just directing people towards bullshit and lies. It's already bad enough. And then you're blaming the wrong things and never even talking about climate, by the way.
Pete, this is what they do. They're transgender experts, apparently.
Yeah.
They're COVID experts. They're all infectious disease experts that have more information and knowledge than Dr. Fauci. They're experts when it comes to fires. I had a MAGA moron call in today talking like he was some sort of water expert.
Yeah.
And he's trying to explain to me how the water works in California, where he doesn't even live there, right?
Yeah.
They have no idea what they're talking about. They're election integrity experts, right? They're experts when it comes to all these things. And obviously, being facetious, they're not. And you're right. I'll tell you why. I had a conversation with Ron Filipowski on Midas Touch. He did my show the other day. Yeah. And it's interesting because in the day and age that we live in on X and other social media platforms, as long as you say something and get engagement, that's all that matters. But it doesn't matter whether it's factual or not. If you wait an hour or two and wait for the facts to come in, you're not going to make money off of that, right? So it's better to lie and come up with conspiracy theories, even if it might not be accurate. Has anybody retracted when they said that it was Joe Biden's open border policy, the reason why this
there's no such thing as retractions anymore. There's no sense. There's no use for them. They're supposed to create credibility for a person, organization, or institution. But, I mean, why would you correct yourself at this point? Nobody's going to see it. And by the way, the only thing that spreads faster than these fires fueled by 100-mile-an-hour winds are the lies about the fires. I mean, they spread around the internet very, very fast. And by the way, I think it's a great point that you made about everybody's an expert. That's such an important point about all of us, which is why I began my show. Because when I was working at SiriusXM, hosting the Comedy Channel, I was listening to all these right wingers. And that was the conclusion I came to. I go, how does this guy know everything about foreign policy, economics, environmental policy, education, you name it? He's an expert on all of them. And his audience gives him that credit. And my boss at the time, who was a longtime radio kind of guru, didn't like that my show was, when people called in, I said, I don't know, but I'm going to book someone on the show who knows. So my whole show has always been to interview experts on the show. It's almost overwhelmingly that's what I do, talk to policy experts and scholars and scientists and journalists and so on. And I don't know why that is especially why nobody – the point is nobody's going to do that because you want to set up a paradigm that you know everything and that you're God's gift and so on. I get that. But that's not how anybody thinks. No one's an expert on everything. And it's such an important point that you're making that even your callers, there's so much information out there. You just read an article and that's it. You know everything about COVID. The epidemiologist overnight.
Yeah, and I said this on the air all the time during COVID, and I almost died of COVID, but I said, listen, don't listen to me. Listen to your personal physician that knows your medical history, and then you guys make a decision. Like, I didn't tell people what to do, and you got all these right-wingers out there that say that the vaccines cause cancer, and they're doing this to you, and it's like, dude, just shut up. I listen to people that are actual real experts, not right-wing buffoons on social media that play doctors.
That being said, I do believe the conspiracies around the vaccine killed Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, that must have been what it was. Oh, by the way, when they're literally laying Jimmy Carter to rest, and Jimmy Carter, people are paying their respects to him, literally days before, what does Donald Trump do? He starts criticizing Jimmy Carter on his policies. He did the same thing with Powell. It's like, this guy is so despicable.
Yeah.
He's so despicable. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess he gave a nice speech about him today, apparently. Did you see, by the way, you were on the air, I think, but all the ex-presidents, no one would, shake his hand?
I saw that. And I saw Mike Pence's wife didn't want anything to do with him.
Mike Pence's wife gave him the old snub.
Yeah, I saw that too. I saw that. And good. I love the fact, I remember the John McCain funeral, and I remember when the Obamas were sitting next to Laura Bush and George W. Bush, and they had humility. Listen, I'm not a fan of George W. Bush's presidency, but I've always said his wife is a woman of class and dignity. And they were able to sit next to one another and share pleasantries. And it goes to show you that's the way politics should be. John McCain was a decent man, and he wanted Barack Obama to speak at his eulogy because that's who John McCain was. And we've totally lost that. And I believe that the main person that's responsible for it is the orange orangutan. That's
I mean, he really has lowered everything about our culture, lowered everything. And I also think it's true to say, including the rest of us, like he's made the rest of us a little worse too. Like, you know what? If you're going to be such an asshole, then maybe I am too, a little bit more of an asshole. I'll never be the kind of asshole you were. I'll never wish for your suffering. Fuck you, James Woods. I'm glad your house burnt. You got other houses. I'm arguing that he's brought us all. He's made us all a little bit worse. Not all of us. There's obviously amazing people that could never give him their power. But our society and our culture, I feel like we've gotten a little more rough as a result of this one man. Not to mention all everybody around him and so on. I mean,
You're right, Pete. And I'm more impatient now than I ever was with some people. But can I go back to James Woods for a minute? Because you had mentioned James Woods. So I agree. Yeah, I said on my show, and I said on another show that I don't wish this upon James Woods. But here's my problem with James Woods. Yeah, I don't like the guy. I think he's despicable. I think he's a bigot. I don't think he's a good guy. But here's my biggest issue. So he was very emotional on CNN. Very understandable, right? You lose your home. I don't blame him. We would both be emotional if we lost our homes, and no problem. But James Woods was one of those people that was criticizing Tim Walz's son for crime. He thinks you're less of a man if you get emotional. But if it happens to you, then it's okay to cry. No, you can't have it both ways. There's nothing wrong with being emotional. We're all human beings. You lost your home. I'm with you. That's terrible. But don't start going after people for getting emotional and crying. But then when it happens to you, it's okay. He's a hypocrite. He's a bad guy. I don't wish ill will for him or his family. It's terrible what he's going through. And I do give him some credit for not going after the Democrats, or at least waiting to do so. Because these are humans' lives at stake, right? And it's horrible what's going on in California.
You're kind of touching on, and I wanted to get to with you, and I talk about this with a lot of people, the issue around gender and masculinity and the problems and the fixes. And I talk about this a lot. I'm working on a project around it. I think deeply about this issue. You are you're a classic man. You're a masculine, ish guy that,
debatable. Some people might disagree with you on that, but
I mean, a little rascal's hat, aside, but like you go hard against these folks. You're like, you do not back down in conversation. I wouldn't want to argue with you at a gas station. You're a tough guy. And I think that's important for, and probably part of your popularity. That you're not a wilting flower of a progressively, minded guy. I think people appreciate that. But I'm guessing, this is the point I'm getting to, just describing you, is they still call you a cuck and gay and all kinds of other things.
All the time.
Because, of course, that would hurt them. It doesn't. I'm imagining you don't really care about those kinds of judgments or words or name calling. But what do you think about that issue, and how often does that become the thing that it devolves into? Like, whatever, dude, you're a fucking cuck, you're beta, you're a sheep, you're a soy boy, you're gay, and then every time I'm on CNN, I get like 7,000 guys telling me that I love cock. And, I'm sure you get something similar.
So the first thing I do is laugh. The second thing I do is say to myself, well, these are probably people that either aren't getting laid themselves,
right,
or are afraid to come out of the closet.
Exactly. I agree with that fully.
Those in their party will ostracize them, right? And they're afraid to be who they are themselves, which I feel really right. I feel really sorry for them if that's the case. And I don't care if people call me names. That has never bothered me. In fact, I laugh at that. When people get personal and they're going to talk about my family or something like that, that's a line that nobody should ever cross. But I try not to pay attention to the trolls. But yes, they try to attack me. And I say to myself, I defend the gay community. I don't care what your sexuality is. I want everyone to be treated the same. And a lot of these people think that drag queen reading is more of a threat to our kids than guns, right? So these are not serious people. Nancy Mace is a perfect example of this, right?
Yeah.
She's the perfect example of the MAGA Republican Party today. She's probably tweeted 1,000 times about how proud she is that she's not letting a colleague that's a trans woman use the female restroom there. But yet when it comes to the fires in California, when it comes to a school shooting, maybe one tweet, that's it. Right. They care more about these issues, and I just want people to be left alone. Listen, I don't want to see like two dudes making out. That's not my thing. If that's your thing, that's fine, but I'm not going to tell them what to do. I don't care. I don't care if you're transgender. And guess what? Yeah, I think that if you're born a man, you're probably a man. And if you're born a woman, you're a woman. However, if someone's transgender and they want to be called he or she, fine, I'll be respectful to them. I don't care. It doesn't affect my life. And when I ask these people, how does it affect your life? They have no answer because it doesn't affect them. If people aren't affecting my life, then I don't care. So long as you're not breaking the law, I don't care if you're transgender. I don't care if you're gay. I don't care what you look like. That's just me, and that's the way that I was raised.
So if you do see two men kissing like in a movie or in public, do you look away or what happens?
If I do see it, I probably look away but you know what? If I see a man and a woman, locking jaws, I probably don't want to watch that either. Yeah. Right. Fair.
Have you been, you don't give off gay. Have you been hit on by men in your life?
Yes.
Yeah.
There have been a few times where I have.
Yeah. I like it.
And for me,
women don't really hit on me, so I'm just happy. Like I'm really am. I'm like, anytime anybody's showing me any kind of admiration, even if it's like a gay guy and it's sexual, I'm like, as long as it's out, and he's being honest about it, and not just like.
But in all seriousness, the way I reacted was, thank you. I was thank you. I wasn't like offended. I wasn't. As long as someone's not being aggressive about it, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not interested, but I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I saw someone that looked like Lindsey Graham at a bar one day that did that to me. It might have been Lindsey Graham. I don't know. But
now, Brian, I don't know what you're trying to infer. I was simply trying to get change. I needed change for $1 to make a phone call because I had lost my phone because it was in Trump's blender. Because remember, he put my phone, he gave my number out, and I had to put it in a blender. That's right. I just got so mistaken. I'm going to go make a ham biscuit.
That's pretty good. That's the best Lindsey Graham impersonation I've ever heard. That was actually really, really good.
I don't want to stop talking to you, but let me ask you one final question. Maybe we can disagree on something. Sure. You said earlier that you're very kind of socially liberal, I guess is what you said. Is there something that you find yourself that you agree more with traditional conservatives on, some policy around economics or something? Or because maybe we could argue about that.
I'll name you a few. That's a really good question. First of all, we got to stop this nonsense where transgender women are allowed to compete with other women on the playing field. I know that's a small percentage of Democrats that think that's okay. It's not. It's cheating. And not only is it cheating, but I think it can harm women on the playing field. That stuff has got to stop. I do believe in the
all one of them.
There's not a lot. I certainly will agree
The
with you.
NCAA put out the numbers. There's like 5 in college and 1 in New York. And I think like bringing it up as an issue has been,
It's not a huge issue. You're right. But any Democrat that think that's okay, that is crazy, in my personal opinion. So that's one. I do believe in capital punishment. I believe that I do. So if you rape somebody and there's DNA evidence and it's proven, if you murder somebody, like Tsarnaev, the brother who is still alive, I don't care if he was 18 or 17 when the Boston Marathon bombing happened, that dude should not be alive. Okay. I don't want that person eating 3 meals a day. I don't want that person,
Weren't you born and raised Jewish?
I'm not a very religious person.
Okay, so that your religion doesn't influence. Usually, a lot of times this decision is influenced by someone.
No, I mean, and you might I don't think religion is a very good thing. I think a lot of people have died because of their religion. I think if you have a belief in God, sure, I'd like to believe there's something out there. But how many people have died because of their religion? How many people push their religion on others? I don't get along with extremely religious people. And
I mean, we can talk about that all day. Listeners know my general views on that. They're fairly in line with yours.
But another Shapiro, if I may say, that fucking weasel, Ben Shapiro, who wears that yarmulke on his head, making it seem like he's a better Jew than me or somebody else.
Well, he is.
That fucking weasel, though, he's such a weasel who thinks that every Jew is anti-abortion, which is also not true.
Right.
That guy is the biggest bigot, homophobic turd in the world. So,
all right, let me go back. Let me go back to your list. I'm going to have you back so we can debate some of these. So the trans issue, which is like, all right, the trans sports specifically, death penalty. You made your point on that. I think I fully disagree with it. I'll tell you why next time. Give me another one or two.
Another Republican policy. Boy, there's not too many others.
Okay.
I'm not a big fan of affirmative action.
Okay.
Here's why. So I believe that if you have a black student and a white student that both have a B average in school and all their extracurriculars are about the same, pick the black student. I don't have a problem with that. But I think it's very unfair to pick a white student who, say, has an A+ average and all the extracurriculars, and you pick a student because of the color of their skin to the same school that has a C- average or a B- average.
Yeah.
I'm all for diversity. Okay. I'm not one of these people on the far right that make America great again, which I think means make America white again. But I am against affirmative action in extreme cases like that. I think it's unfair to
What about
somebody.
for college deference for colleges to choose students? Do you think it should be used there? The Supreme Court banned it now, but
I think my opinions align more with Democrats when it comes to that.
What instructs your views on race in general? Life experience, books, a poem.
Well, here's what I'm okay with, right? I'm okay with hiring people with the same skill levels, similar qualifications to somebody that's white, and hiring that person who happens to be black for diversity purposes. I don't have any problem with that at all. I thought Joe Biden made a mistake when he said he was definitely going to hire a black woman. If you wanted to hire a black woman, okay, no problem. I don't have a problem with that. But don't say that, because then you're giving people the opportunity to say, oh, you only hired her because she's black, right?
Yeah, I mean, I understand there's a minority of black folks who subscribe to that belief because they feel like
reparations is something else. I had nothing to do with slavery. My immediate family members had nothing to do with slavery. So if black people are okay with reparations, does that mean because I'm Jewish, I should be getting paid by people in Germany? I don't like to compare the two.
Well, the Germans did make a tremendous reparations to Jewish victims of the Holocaust. They could never, obviously. But I mean, there was a huge effort along those lines, which is never, obviously. We still have we can't even get a white supremacist statue taken down, much less give black people their land back or any other number of opportunities, which is what reparations. Okay. So those are affirmative action, reparations. Give me one or two more you got. Anything else?
When it comes to economic policies, I pretty much align with Democrats there. When it comes to many social issues, I believe gay marriage is fine. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a lot in common with Republicans. And going back to the racial issues, I went to Black Lives Matter protest. I believe in what they were trying to do. I'm not for the organization, the 8 or 9 people that took advantage of it, but I am for what the tens of millions of people marched for.
Yeah, I don't like when people refer to, I mean, it's true, it's fair to refer to it as an organization, but I think Black Lives Matter is simply the civil rights movement for Black anti-oppression in America today. It's just Dr. King's work carried on. It's not even arguably as radical, one might argue, but it's very similar. I mean, did you have any criticisms of the civil rights movement led by Dr. King, or
No, absolutely not. Dr. King was a hero, and
yes. I mean, I just feel like today's Black Lives Matter. There's always grifters. Sure. There was grifters in that movement. There's grifters.
I'm for the movement, Pete. I'm for the movement. I'm just not for the organization. And I hate it when you bring up January 6th and these MAGA right-wingers will immediately bring up Black Lives Matter protests. Listen, I have a lot of empathy for minorities in this country. I don't know what it's like to be pulled over because of the color of my skin or be chased around in a store because of the color of my skin. So I'm on the side of so many social issues when it comes to minorities. There's a few that maybe I disagree with, but I have criticisms of Democrats. I think Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer need to get the hell out. We need younger people in office. I think we need to call out Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. I think those are 2 despicable individuals.
Oh, wow.
Tlaib is yet to call out Hamas. She has yet to say Hamas is a terrorist organization. Ilhan Omar, every single time an atrocity happens to the Jewish people, sometimes they'll call it out, but then they'll say, what about this, though? But what about that? I think they're anti-Semitic in nature, and those 2 people are, in my opinion, are extremists. And I think Hakeem Jeffries and others need to call them out for it.
Do you think do you have strong views on the Arab-Israeli conflict over the years, much less post, October 7th?
I do. I'm not a Benjamin Netanyahu fan by any stretch of the imagination. However, let's be very clear on this. If Israel did not have a right to defend themselves, Israel would be gone. Okay. You have a group of people that do not believe that Israel should exist. With that being said, they also have a responsibility for the least amount of innocent casualties. But what do you do when Hamas has infiltrated themselves among the Palestinian people? You could make the argument that Netanyahu has not handled this the right way. Okay, but this has been a conflict for decades and decades and decades and decades. It's a horrible situation.
What do you think of the genocide word? Do you think it's fair to call it a genocide?
I'm not going to sit here and say that war crimes have not been committed, but I also will say for the most part that Israel wants to conquer Hamas. And I believe if the Iranian government, they're a terrorist organization as far as I'm concerned. And I believe many of the Palestinians, whether they will admit to it or not, they are not anti-Hamas. And if they are, they certainly don't act like it. I wish, if Israel hated Palestinians, then they wouldn't allow millions of them to live in their country. There are millions of people that live in Israel that are living free.
How do you find all the death of children, for example?
Horrible. It's just as bad as an innocent Israeli child dying. I compare them the exact same way. These are innocent human beings. These are children, and it's absolutely horrible. But make no mistake about it. Right now, this war would not be happening if Hamas didn't decide to do what they did. They started this, and unfortunately, we're in the situation we're in now. I wish it wasn't happening. It's a horrible, complex situation. But if it happened to us, we would be doing it as well. Hundreds of thousands of innocent Iraqis died in the Iraq War, right? Thousands and thousands of innocent people in Afghanistan died after 9/11. It's terrible, but that wouldn't have happened if Al-Qaeda didn't decide to take down the 2 World Trade Center buildings, right? So these situations are very complex. I'm not a Benjamin Netanyahu fan.
Did you support the invasion in Iraq?
No, absolutely not. We were lied to. We were lied to that there were weapons of mass destruction. It's one of George W. Bush's biggest failures. He and along with Dick Cheney, they made a lot of money off of this war. Yeah. And I don't believe it was an inside job. I'm not Laura Loomer, but I do believe Condoleezza Rice, the administration, it was a big failing. They had a lot of warnings. Going into Iraq, I think, was a deflection from what we were supposed to do to begin with. Go into Afghanistan and get Osama bin Laden. So no, I was always against it.
I love the fact that I've gotten to really, watch your show a lot and you handle all these MAGA callers and so on. But yet I didn't, know your views on a lot of these issues that are huge issues. So I appreciate you letting me go through them. And I'm not going to argue or push back on really much of anything, because I really just wanted to know what you thought. I will next time we talk. We can talk about some of these other ones, but obviously, you and I and the rest of the pro-democracy coalition is pretty laser focused on that issue and fighting there. So we're obviously going to disagree on something.
Well, don't worry. Donald Trump is going to end all the wars in a day, so don't worry about it. I mean,
it's weird that it's just like one of the cult. Yeah, obviously it's a cult thing. It's almost boring to me to point out the inconsistencies in someone's thinking, but they like to say that, I like him because he's anti-war. And before he's even president, he's talking about starting wars with 10 countries.
Greenland. I mean, how can anybody take it? Here's the problem, though, Pete, and tell me if you agree or not. But, his first administration, he still had some competent people around him that said, no, Mr. President, you probably shouldn't do that. Now, everybody around him, they're yes men and yes women. So when he wants to do something, he's going to do it. Nothing was more awkward than those two doofuses in Don Jr. and Charlie Kirk going to Greenland, going from bar to bar.
Yeah.
It's just, the world is laughing at us. And the next four.
My view right now, and I hate to say it, but we'll stand in his way and do everything we can to prevent him from tearing families apart and charting women's ovulation and destroying the rule of law. We'll try to stop him, but I do think that we're, as a country and as a culture and this media paradigm and everything that we're in, people do have to feel some kind of pain on prices or job or housing for him to, and this movement to get checked, because COVID is the only reason he didn't get reelected, and he almost did despite COVID. So it's almost like something terrible. I almost want to say, because your point is he's going to have all these people that are more capable yes men and the Supreme Court's rulings that allow him to kind of commit crimes. And I guess I feel and he's going to, and it's the only way that the pendulum is going to swing back towards Earth One and reality when people feel the horror. And it's probably not going to be most of us who have more opportunity and privilege. So, easy to say, but I'll be, with the folks who are and covering and advocating for those who are obviously being marginalized and kicked out of the country and torn apart and so on. But that's my feeling. What about you? I mean, don't you think that no matter what we do, it's almost like they're going to succeed in a lot of ways, and that's going to wreck a lot of shit, and that's the only way people are going to notice and kick them out?
I think in 3 years.
He's still alive, by the way, the fucking guy could die in 2 weeks. He's 80. And anybody that's 80, I don't care who you are. He's not
morbidly obese. He has a worse diet than me, and I have a terrible diet.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Oh, I eat terrible. I mean,
really? How old of a man are you?
I'm 44 years old, and I don't cook. I eat crap every day.
Are you going to do you think you'll turn it around? Do you have any desire to change the way you eat?
I think if I have the right woman in my life, that's possible. But I'm very
that'll change. Yeah,
that's possible.
So you're on the market. And you're looking for a lady who can cook you a nutritious, change your habits to eat better.
I'll be honest with you. When I had more free time and I was working for companies and I didn't have to do half the work that I have to do now, then I took the time to eat better.
I hear you.
Now it's just I just want my peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I eat like a 12-year-old, by the way, and my fruit roll up. And I eat terrible. What did I have today? I had a sausage egg McMuffin today. I'll give you a quick story. I had a McRib about an hour before going on the air 2 weeks ago, and I threw up like 5 times while I was on the air. I'm in the middle of interviewing Ron Filipowski. And I had to cut the interview short because I had to go to the bathroom to throw up. So I'm never going to do that again. No more McRibs for me.
Oh, Brian, these are, by the way, I'm going to get you off the other topics in the future to talk about this stuff. I love talking about everything. And I think men's health is a really important issue to me. And I'm 49, so I got a few years on you, but I'm thinking a lot more. I've always thought.
I was a college athlete.
Yeah.
I played 2 Division I college sports.
Oh, what'd you play?
Not the manly sports, tennis and golf. But
all right.
But I was on a scholarship. But
that's awesome.
To play college tennis, you have to be in good physical condition. I had a 6-pack in college. Now that's gone. I've got the Sean Hannity dad bod. Well, maybe not that bad, but
oh God,
I'm trying to get more exercise. I just learned how to play pickleball. That's
there
a lot
you go.
of fun.
Now now you're talking. You'll blow out a knee soon. You won't be able to exercise at all, and you'll be right back to that McRib. No, I'm being negative. That's great. Good for you that you're playing pickleball. Good for you. I want to talk more about that and everything else. I feel bad for taking up so much of your time, Brian, but this is
really, anytime.
I hope folks enjoyed it, and I hope people will go watch you on YouTube and subscribe. Everything's in the show notes. PTL.
Yep, at PTL Radio Show.
Is my PTL. Sorry, I don't have that in front of me.
That's okay.
At PTL Radio Show everywhere is how you find Brian.
Yeah, I just started being a little bit more interactive on TikTok. I had like 30,000 followers, but I wasn't really.
Wow, look at you.
I'm putting videos back up there now, and I'm a little bit more interactive on X now. So just trying to be more interactive and putting videos up every day. And it's a lot of work, but I do enjoy it also.
I'm glad you're staying over there, and I'm glad you're engaging with all these people. I think it's important what you do. I think we need people doing what you do, the way you do it, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate you joining me.
Pete, I appreciate you inviting me on the show. I've been a fan of yours for a long time. I love what you do. You're an extremely talented guy. And keep up the great work, my friend. And I'm happy to call you a friend and look forward to
Well, I really appreciate it. You've been helping me a lot on the YouTube thing and behind the scenes and been a good friend. We'll do it again really soon, man. Thanks, Brian.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
All right, there you go. Brian Shapiro pushing the limits on YouTube. I hope you enjoyed that conversation, a little bit different from the norm. And I was really happy to have Brian and look forward to going back on his show. He's helped me out a lot too with the YouTube endeavors as I'm slowly trying to launch this, slowly only because I'm doing a million other things at once. There's only just so much time I can dedicate to it. But I do still plan to be a YouTube star, a YouTuber, a content creator. And I cannot do it without your support right here. So patreon.com/PeteDominic until I get to be a YouTube star. My YouTube page is Stand Up with Pete, by the way. If you're not doing anything today and you haven't subscribed already, head on over there. The show posts there every day, and I'm trying to post videos, at least the interview of the guest most days as well. Ava's going to start helping me with that, so we'll see. Anyway, Brian, thank you very much. That was awesome. I will be back tomorrow. I've got Dr. Aaron Carroll and Celeste Headley coming up this week still. You're going to love it, I hope, I think, and I am definitely loving it that you're still here. Bumblebees, you're the best. JohnCarroll.org. Take it away, John. Go buy his music now.
You got to open up the window to let in some light.